First and Now is the official BC Lions podcast. Pleasure to be back. Matt Baker, Nick Kowalski, virtual today, the virtual Go-Goat Sports Studios. Shout out, as always, to our pals at Sakaris and Price, who'll be doing some heavy Lions content this week. It's a big one. Concert kickoff Saturday, Edmonton in town. A chance to go 4 points up on the Elks. Nick will recap the other games of week one. Before we're finished here, we have a quick intro before we welcome in a special guest to this episode. But Nick, you got the Calgary experience again out of our system here, and all kinds of great content coming out of a solid win. Not perfect, but they rarely are. Pretty good vibe after week one.
Yeah, exactly. The team knows that there were some things they could fix from that win, but it was a win. It was a pretty. I think the score flattered Calgary a little bit when it was only a 10-point victory, because from the get-go, right, the Vernon Adams offense was in control, leading that opening touchdown drive. The defense, through the air, they did a fantastic job. I look at a guy like Gary Peters again, who had multiple pass breakups, really set the tone early when it came to Calgary's receivers against our DBs, and it was a good win. It's not easy to win at McMahon Stadium, so to get that off, to scratch that one off the list early on week one, it's nothing but good things.
Yeah, big divisional opportunity right off the bat, and a leg up in the head-to-head tiebreak again. That's what allowed us to host last year, right? Both teams 12-6 win 2 out of 3, and we're done with McMahon Stadium in the regular season. 2 visits here by Calgary in July, and then I believe October. They'll be here to wrap up the season. So start with Calgary, finish with Calgary, and another one in late July in between. But talking about Vernon Adams Jr., kind of a funny start to that game. Calgary gets a big return. So they think, okay, here we go again, special teams, but they get it into field goal range, and the first of 2 misses by Rene Paredes. Don't usually see that too often. Terry Williams, a bit of a delayed decision, decides to run it out. Only gets to the 15, but no problem. 8-9 plays. Vernon Adams, perfect 9 of 9 on that drive. In fact, he's now at 300 passing yards. A little bit of an adjustment. He's going to get credit for one more completion. But pretty steady as far as VA goes.
Yeah, and another guy who picked up where he left off was Dominique Grimes, finding the end zone twice, using his size to win balls and catch balls over the middle too, of what you saw pretty much throughout the whole game. And then he got a guy like Alex Hollins too, who was pretty much from when he got into the lineup last year in Toronto, was just fit in perfectly into this offense. I know he's he's a pretty easygoing guy, and you can tell before games, the receiver room especially is a loose group. We've talked about how tight this group is, but they're very loose too, and they're confident in their abilities. And I think a guy like Alex Hollins really showed that too from the first drive, that he can contribute on this offense. Terry Williams got involved in the offense too, a couple of catches when Lucky Whitehead had to miss a couple of series. So there's a lot of options, like we said, in this offense. And then Taquan Mazzell too, 81 rushing yards from his first carry too, made Mike Alway miss on his first carry, and really looked good carrying the rock all game.
Yep, Mizell, the smoke, he had a big run on the last offensive drive of the game to help put it away. Justin McInnes, leaping catch on another 2nd and long. So when they needed a plays to shut it down, it did work. And the defense, no touchdowns allowed until just almost the 3-minute warning of the game, right? VA's one little miscue. I don't think you can even blame him for that, but 100%. But the interception to Cameron Judge, but the defense holds them to 3, and overall, both sides of the ball doing what they had to do to get it done. So the Lions 1-0 to start. Edmonton coming in here Saturday. All kinds of events this week that we'll talk about. The backyard party Friday, 4 o'clock. Saturday at 11 outside on Robson. The TSN panel going to be broadcasting on Friday and Saturday. The Friday portion including a viewing party for Friday Night Football, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg. That's going to be a nice little cool addition. Kind of give it a Grey Cup festival type feel almost, Nicky.
Oh, for sure. And with the panel here too, it's going to be an exciting weekend. really going to be a big festival this whole weekend, and it's obviously going to end with the Lions and Elks game right after an LL Cool J performance, which is just another thing that's happening this weekend that's going to be really exciting. And yeah, like we really saw it last year in week one where the BC fans came out in big amounts, right? In that week one victory, like the street party was crazy on that Saturday. Pretty much, it was a year ago yesterday, right? June 11th. And yeah, expecting the same here. It's going to be a great weekend.
Yes, and we're going to talk to Kate Beirness, host of the panel. She'll be out here along with Matt Dunnigan and Davis Sanchez and Milt Stiegel, the touchdown beagle, one of your Winnipeg friends. Love Milt. I love the entire panel, and good on the organization for making that happen. The Saturday part, they will move inside. We're going to talk to Kate Beirness from TSN here in just a minute. But before we do, Nick, had to ask quickly, we're talking LL Cool J. You've been adding to your playlist. You've been all LL Cool J these last couple of weeks. What's going on?
Oh, definitely a little bit. You brought me on to Headsprung. I'm Bad. So I'm trying to think of these more upbeat songs because we have the privilege to actually use this music for our social content. So yeah, definitely been looking at the more upbeat tracks from LL. And if anybody has any suggestions even that I just didn't name there for the more upbeat, kind of more hip hop style rather than the R&B style. The R&B style is a little different. It's not really meant for football, right? But for a football edit, but it's still good music, obviously. But the hip hop stuff, the more upbeat stuff, I'm looking for tracks to do some edits to after this game. But yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, like I said, it's a bit more my era than yours, so to speak. So Headsprung, reminds me of my clubbing days, if I can say that. Phenomenon, Mama Said Knock You Out, how can you forget? Doing It, if you're in kind of a more, I don't know, romantic mood. I don't know. I hope he plays
that's
that
the word,
one.
Romantic, yeah.
Yeah, that's the word. But it's going to be great. I mean, jokes aside, get your tickets while you can. I mean, as of this recording on a Monday, the lower bowl, not just about gone, less than 1,000 when we made the announcement last Tuesday that we're opening it up. So you can get into the upper bowl starting at $25, kids 17 and under for $10. Accompanying parents / adults can join them for $20. You won't find a better pro sports ticket deal in town. BCLions.com, 604-589-ROAR. Be there Saturday. In a moment, Kate Beirness from TSN will talk about the panel's visit, and we get Kate's overall thoughts on week one as well, as she was following it all. That's coming up next on First and Now. And off to Toronto we go right now. Kate Beirness, host of the CFL on TSN Panel, amongst other duties there at the network, and she's joining us here on First and Now. Kate, first off, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Nick, for having me. I'm excited for the hype around BC these days, to say the least.
Yeah, let's talk about that first and foremost. How exciting was it to get the word that you and the guys were coming out here for a couple days?
To be quite honest, I think the only road trips we really take these days are to Hamilton. So I was ecstatic when I heard that we were coming west. And obviously, to produce our killer show in different stadiums is not a small task by any means. So I know that when our management kind of got together with the BC Lions and they came up with this idea, we were all ecstatic. I literally heard of the idea and I immediately texted my executive producer, Paul, and I was like, yes to BC. Let's go see this. And I think for us sitting in studio last year, watching One Rip perform at the opener and then obviously the crowd that you guys had as well for the Western semifinal against the Stamps. I mean, it looks like something that we haven't seen in so long in BC. And I think when we found out last week that we were coming, every single one of us had the exact same reaction. And we can't wait.
Yeah. Do you, I think we're about the same sort of era music wise. I mean, do you have any favorite LL Cool J songs?
Well, by the way, Milt Stiegel and Davis Sanchez are more of the LL Cool J era, because I think Stiegel was telling me he was coming out of high school in 1980. I was born in 1984, so I'm not going to date myself on this podcast. But of course, growing up, and it's funny, I actually knew LL Cool J more as an actor, I think, than an artist. But Knock You Out has to be one of my favorites. So, I mean, that's going to be the one that I think is going to bring the house down. But I don't know. I've heard he's amazing live, and a 45-minute pregame, and we'll be rocking to it for sure.
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm in 84 as well. Nick's a lot younger, but yeah, Ches and Milt.
Nick's like 98,
yeah,
he looks like.
But Ches and Milt, it's way more
off, yeah.
It's way more those guys' era than ours. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, so Hamilton and Grey Cups pretty much would be the road trips. I mean, is this something you'd like to do more of as the season goes on? Maybe this will become an annual tradition.
I'm not lying when I say this. I believe that we should go on the road to every single home stadium throughout the year. I think it's so cool to feature all these stadiums. And BC is such a wonderful example because I remember it pre-pandemic, and let's be honest here, it wasn't great. And there were a lot of years where there were a lot of fans there and not a lot of hype and not a lot of excitement. And seeing what can happen, and I mean, I have to give so much credit to Amar Doman and what he's done with this franchise. But it makes me believe, as, yes, a broadcaster of the CFL, but first and foremost, a fan of the CFL, that this league could be okay if certain things happen. So I think seeing this and being able to bring, the CFL audience to BC and show them what's going on pregame. I mean, we're going to be outside on the Friday. We're going to be indoors on the Saturday. If we went around and we showed every single stadium and what was happening, I think it would help big time. So yes, to answer your question, Matt, I truly hope that everyone sees this on Saturday and says, oh, we would like the panel there as well, and that teams work with us to make it happen, because I think that was the coolest thing. And selfishly, I like to get out of studio as well. I mean, I'm very, contained to the studios. Let's go meet the people.
Yeah, and exactly. And being a week in the books now, we saw Edmonton yesterday, the 30,000+ fans there. Montreal looked hopping too with Our Lady Peace at the halftime show. Is it exciting to see all these different markets now have all these different festivities going around the football games?
Absolutely. And I think the great part is too, it shows you it just isn't special events, right? We always know the Banjo Bowl and obviously, all these big events, Touchdown Atlantic, and that was such a success last year. Actually, we are going out to Touchdown Atlantic again this year. So I shouldn't say this is the only road trip, and obviously the Hall of Fame game, but I think seeing the excitement around these events, and especially when we're there, it's awesome. And I think, when I look back on this past weekend, Winnipeg's pretty much a guarantee every time they're going to IG Field rocking. Obviously, Sask hasn't had their home opener. The only one that I would say that I was a little disappointed in was with Calgary. And I would say other than that, for Commonwealth, for those fans, to show up, you had a home win since October 2019, and you've got this guaranteed ticket initiative, which I absolutely love. And I think they're trying. I really do. And I think the Elks are better this year. But, and I remember a day in time when Commonwealth was packed. So again, I think it's all there. There's all the potential. It's just a matter of, getting bummed into seats sometimes and seeing, what a great sport and production this can be.
Mm-hmm. And obviously the Elks are coming to town this weekend on Saturday. We watched them yesterday. What was your takeaways from Edmonton's performance against Saskatchewan?
Gino Lewis earned his paycheck yesterday. I think we can all agree with that. 102 yards play. I mean, it was ridiculous. I think the Elks are better. I really do. I mean, we were concerned about, they have two rookie DBs there who are actually okay. Off the beginning, there was a couple, touching spots, but I think they've poured so much money into this offense, and Taylor Cornelius is surrounded, by a lot of great talent. Concern right now, I think, if anyone watched that game, would be the offensive line. I mean, the fact that you're first and goal with minutes to go in the game and you go 0 for 3, I mean, that's just, it's not acceptable, to be quite honest. You got 3 shots. And I mean, credit to Sask defense. I should say that too, because Rider fans will be all over me. But I just think, that was one for the taking, in my opinion. So that's a tough one. But at the same time, I truly do believe that this is a much better Elks team this year.
Yeah, I think you can make a case that everyone in the division improved in some areas, but what about some other takeaways from week one? I know we had the opener Thursday night in Calgary. What'd you take away from that game overall?
I was actually a little surprised with the stance, to be quite honest with you. I think all of us going in and watching Kadeem Carey run the ball last year, we thought he'd have a much bigger performance. But again, too, I mean, it's week one. I don't like to put a ton into these. I mean, we've seen teams start absolutely terribly and then, make runs to the cup. So except for the Bombers. We always expect the Bombers to be perfect and Zach Collaros to play like he did against the Tiger Cats. We just expect that at this point. But in that game, a few things stood out for me. I'm overly familiar with the Lions' new running back, Taquan Mazzell, I believe his name is, obviously replacing Butler. He looked really great off the hop, and I thought, honestly, they did a really nice job. I mean, he just had they started off with a bang, and then they had a bit of a lull, and then they were able to pull off the game. But I think, to fill in the shoes of Nathan Rourke is not an easy thing. I mean, you guys had one of the most exciting seasons I think I've ever seen, in my life of watching CFL with Nathan there. So I think to step in is really, really tough. I just really loved VA's composure. I've always really enjoyed watching him play. He's an exciting guy with his legs, and I think once he gets to find a little more chemistry with Lucky and everyone, it's going to be. I think you guys are set up quite well, to be quite honest. I'm talking like you guys play on the team too, by the way.
Yeah, you mentioned Nathan Rourke certainly energized this market in a way we hadn't seen, and hopefully it gets people interested still to come in and see what the team is capable of. Year 3, I think it is for you, Kate, hosting the panel. Overall, how much are you enjoying the CFL family?
Is it 3 already? I'm losing track of time these days. You know what? I love the CFL family, and that goes just beyond our crew at TSN. Obviously at TSN, I've been there for 14 years now, and I've had the privilege of covering some pretty neat stuff. I would say the CFL to me is the most unique league I cover. And there's something about it that is unlike other leagues. And I think the biggest thing is, as I always say to people, is it's accessible. And, the players want to talk to you. Not that like all players in other leagues don't want to talk to you, but there's this level of it of just like a family, and it's always been that way. And when I grew up, my dad had season tickets to the Argos. I got to watch guys like Doug Flutie and the Rocket Ishmael play, and I think to myself, what a privilege that this league is still going on and still accessible to the fans and the fan bases, and we have a blast. And I think say what you want about our panel, maybe we're not as serious as people want us to be all the time, and I get that. But at the same time, first of all, we'll break down football for you. That's, of course, a no-brainer. But at the same time, we really love being there, and we love what we cover. And I hope that translates in some way. So sorry if you want like a really serious broadcast, because you're not going to get it from us.
One of the things I wanted to ask about, I'm just curious, and I think it's a new wrinkle you guys introduced 2 or 3 years ago now, maybe 2 years ago. But after the 3-minute warning, there's a shot that cuts to you guys, and you guys always have a different kind of act going on. Like how does that? Where do the ideas come from? Because you have to do it every single game, right? And it's impressive all the different ideas you guys come up with. I
appreciate that, and I'm not going to take all credit here, but I'm going to take 95% of credit. So normally, like, something will happen. And here's the thing with a 3-minute warning: you only have I think it's 20 seconds. Like, it's really, really quick, right? And a lot of the time, I'll say to the guys, or they'll come up with something. And like the other night, like Jim Barker was on the panel, and I was like, "Coach, just like tap your ring." And I'm like, "Oh, and Jim Barker's going to tell you how many diamonds he has in his ring." So it's like you think of these things on the fly, and sometimes I just try to keep them serious, but I honestly don't think those are entertaining at all. And we're trying to sell why you should come watch us at halftime, because you can go do other things. So I don't know. It's I will say sometimes though, it's a lot of pressure. Like I'm like 90 seconds there. I'm like, I have nothing. So I'll look at Stiegel and I'll be like, "You take this one," or like Davis, and I'll be like, "You got this." So they're great. The greatest part about the panelists are they play along with anything. Like it is, I watch panels sometimes, and I mean, we would probably say we're closest to like a TNT panel, where it's just like we are totally game for anything.
For sure, yeah, and it's definitely entertaining too. Is there a favorite one that you have that can you think off the top of your head?
Analysts, or like one time that we
the 3-minute intro?
I think like if it's I don't know, I like anything athletic wise against Milt. There's this one where we were training with a band, and sometimes we're just offset, just stretching or something. I mean, we love playing sports still, and like I think we were just chasing each other around the set one time, or anytime that has like a football involved and I can make like a one-handed catch, I'm like, all right, this is going well. But Dave Naylor too, he's broken out the guitar a couple times, and that's so impressive that he can do that on national TV. So I'm going to go with those ones.
Yeah, I think I've seen the guitar routine before for sure. But yeah, it could totally tell you guys have fun with it, and it's great that we're able to host you in a home opener type situation. You've been to Vancouver before, obviously, Kate. What other events have you done here? Would you have done any Raptors exhibition or hockey in the past?
Surprisingly, I've never been sent for Raptors exhibition. I'd love to. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
The only sporting event that I've actually ever covered in Vancouver was the last Grey Cup that you held. So that was the last time I was actually present in the stadium, I would say. And I've actually never been, and Calgary was playing in that one. I remember that. But I haven't been to a BC Lions game, and I'm going to say 12, 14 years. So this for me, I wasn't covering the league. I probably just had started at TSN. So it's going to be awesome. And you know how I know it's amazing is that I have my best friend is in Vancouver, which is great. I was just out there 2 weeks ago. And she was like, hey, like, I'm going to come, but I'm having a hard time getting lower bowl tickets. And I can't even tell you, like, normally I'd be like, you're like, whatever, come get a ticket. And that made me so happy. I know that sounds bad that she couldn't get tickets, but that just shows you, how many people that this is currently reaching. So I felt that was really cool.
Awesome. That's great. And yeah, Calgary Hamilton 2014. Yes. That came down to the wire, right? That was the Brandon Banks almost return. Yeah. I think I've been to 5 or 6 Grey Cups, and every one of them has had a crazy ending, like including last year, 2 block field goals. Yeah.
Even when I go to the States, that's how I said, watch the Grey Cup. Then last year's was just not the prettiest football I've ever seen in my whole life, but that was the most entertaining fourth quarter. We couldn't even believe it on the set. So I love it when I go down to the States. I'm like, you guys got to watch the Grey Cup. And then they do, and they're like, my God, that was entertaining.
Yeah, you rarely have a dud Grey Cup. That's a good point. And last year's was indeed a good finish. Listen, this was great to have you on, Kate. It's great that you guys are coming out. We'll be there Friday, Saturday. We'll come say hi. 4:00, we'll have a viewing party for Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, and then you're inside. Like I said, it'll feel like a Grey Cup environment because you'll be inside at field level, and we look forward to hosting you. Thanks for taking the time here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Kate.
First and Now is the official Lions podcast. Thanks to Kate Beirness. That was excellent. Does a great job on the panel, and looking forward to seeing them out this week. Milt Stiegel, Matt Dunnigan, and Davis Sanchez, fellow North Delta product like myself, will be out here. 4:00 Friday, Saturday, pretty much inside for the coverage. So excellent initiative. Just add it all up this week, Nick, all the cool things going on.
Oh, for sure. And it makes a ton of sense that they would come out to this big event. I'm sure that that's going to be an additional buzz around this whole weekend, is that the panel's going to be here live on site. And yeah, just excited to really get this going for this weekend.
Yeah, and, talking about it again gives it kind of a bigger game feel, a Grey Cup feel. And like we talked about with Kate, maybe potentially set a precedent for doing something at some teams' home openers every year. We're talking about week 2, of course, Lions and Elks. I hit on it off the top early, but a chance to go 4 points up on Edmonton 2 games in would be a huge advantage. It's 1 game at a time, obviously, but we're going to go around the league, and since we're talking about the Elks first, we'll go backwards. Edmonton, the streak continues. What is it now, Nikki? 18 straight losses at home dating back to the end of 2019. Kate talked about it. They had 3 chances to punch it in late, take a lead. There would have been a lot of time left still, but Taylor Cornelius and company ultimately cannot get the job done.
Yeah, unfortunately, and that's what we were kind of talking about, is eventually you just got to make it happen. You got to execute, right? And that goal line stand is literally on a platter for you to take the lead late in the game, and they can't punch it in, unfortunately. But even we talked about the weapons that with Kate that Edmonton has with Gino Lewis, Steven Dunbar, Manny Arsenal, still a good player and starting for the Elks, but they just got to find a way to get them the ball, right? And I know RP and our defense are going to be game planning for that, and they know that Gino can with one play make a 100-yard touchdown like he did last week. So that's something you definitely got to watch out for. They have that big play potential, even at running back, I think, too, with Kevin Brown, right? He's a little speedster that can break out. So although they didn't put up a lot of points last week, I know RP and the defense, they know it's going to be a big challenge going against these big-bodied receivers and a little speedster running back too. So it's not going to be an easy one this week.
No, we talked about them improving on offense, like you said, and Taylor Cornelius may not have had a game he wanted to play, but he has a leg up, you'd think, last year, and they're going to be well coached. Chris Jones and his staff, another year together now, they've had it under their belt to sort of establish their new identity, new culture. There's that word again, culture. Used that a lot lately, but yeah, if fans expect this Edmonton team just to roll over and have it be a lopsided result like it was last year, you're going to be sadly mistaken. I expect this to come down to the fourth quarter. Saturday was a good night. Had the popcorn, had a couple beverages. I put the Ottawa-Montreal game on and not the Stanley Cup final. I PVR'd the Stanley Cup final. Not too into that final for some reason. I don't know. It's gone on too long, all these 2-day breaks between games. But kudos to the Alouettes. Pretty much a full house, I think, right? At Molson Stadium, looked like. And props to Edmonton for having 32,000. But the Alouettes defense feeding off that crowd. They hold the Red Blacks to just 4 field goals, no touchdowns. Nick Arbuckle, speaking of guys trying to find their own way, couldn't get into the end zone, and Montreal grinds out a 19-12 win with Cody Fajardo.
Yeah, I would say similar to our game on Thursday. That was another one where it was only a 7-point victory, but it felt like Montreal was in control pretty much throughout the game. They started with a big opening drive too. Cody Fajardo hitting Mac, their new receiver they got out there for a big gain, and then just Montreal struggled to move the ball on the ground, and then they let up probably too many sacks to their liking, and that's kind of why the game kept close. But yeah, like you said, Montreal's defense generating 3 interceptions off Nick Arbuckle, really causing fits for Ottawa's offense all game long. Even Montreal secondary had some really clutch breakups. I look back to one and Jalen Acklin dropped a touchdown in the end or in the back of the end zone that could have changed the game in the second quarter. But Montreal. The more I look at Montreal's roster, the more I think they're going to be more and more legit. And I'm not writing off Cody Fajardo yet by any means, like some have in the media. But I think Montreal, again, it's a tough place to play too. We figured that out last year, and it looked like it was on Saturday too.
Yeah, they got that one persistent fan blowing the air horn behind the bench all game. Really comes through on TV. So Montreal is 1-0. That East Division, it's up for grabs because mainly the Hamilton Tiger Cats dropped their first game. Winnipeg not looking like they're having any Grey Cup hangover. They say sometimes the team that loses it has a bit of a hangover to start, but Winnipeg comes out firing on all cylinders. Zach Collaros, 354 yards, the 3 touchdowns. The usual suspects, right? Brady Oliveira goes over 100. Nick Dembski, 113, and a touchdown early to help set the tone. Hamilton's offense really couldn't get going. It was the special teams that gave him a chance in the end, but then ultimately the defense couldn't keep Winnipeg off the field either. But the Winnipeg Blue Bombers looking just as impressive, one game, but 42-31.
Yeah, bizarre football game. It was 32-4 at one point, and then all these fumbles and blocked punts later. Hamilton has a legitimate chance at actually tying the game up late, which was pretty crazy. But yeah, you're watching that game and you're thinking Winnipeg comes out touchdown on offense, and you're thinking like, oh boy, here we go again. And I brought the Carlton Aguduzi. He's healthy now. He's this big 6'6" receiver that Winnipeg has. If Winnipeg doesn't already have enough receivers that can make plays, or big, long, athletic players that can make plays, right? But Hamilton did figure it out later in the second half. They were moving the ball through the air in chunks. James Butler finding the end zone too off one of those turnovers. So, I mean, if there's anything to look at for Winnipeg, they made some uncharacteristic mistakes in terms of those turnovers and allowing those chunk plays later in the game. So, while they did start really hot, maybe they let their foot off the gas a little bit, but they still look pretty dominant, at least from when it mattered at the beginning of the game.
Yep, so they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And yeah, you're talking about the receiver that came through Aduski, no Kenny Lawler, right? So at least for a couple of weeks, there's an opportunity for someone to step up. Looking ahead to this week again, we've talked about the main event, Lions and Elks. But speaking of the Bombers, they go into Saskatchewan on Friday. Again, if you're at our backyard party presented by Play Now, they'll be showing that on the Plaza, 6 o'clock kickoff. First game of the week, Calgary in Ottawa. So both those teams looking for a first win. Another Thursday game for the Stampeders. Going into our nation's capital, we'll see if Jake Mayer and company are able to right the ship after struggling to put up yards and points against us. Final game of the week, finally, the defending Grey Cup champion Argonauts. Funny, they get the week 1 bye, and then they're the last team to play in week 2, so they'll be raising the banner at BMO Field. Argos and Ticats, so a couple of traditional rivalry matchups, early Labor Day weekend matchups going down in week 2. Love this. Argos and Ticats.
I'm loving all 4 games this week. Yeah, Calgary-Ottawa seems like a game where it's really going to be telling in terms of one team's going to drop to 0-2. These are 2 teams that didn't really have the best performances last week and are definitely going to want to rebound and show that they can be a competitive team in this league this year. And then, Friday night you got the Prairie Battle, the Winnipeg at Saskatchewan. Those seem to be always low-scoring, physical games. Those teams don't like each other. So I'm looking forward to see if Sax can pull off the upset there and see if Winnipeg can keep chugging along. And then, obviously, I'd say we're the main event on Saturday this week. But maybe might be a little biased there. And Chad Kelly's first start on Sunday or this season. The Argos defending their title, right? And see if Bo Levi Mitchell can bounce back. So I think they're still, like Kate said earlier, that you can't take away too much from last week. You kind of, especially a team like Hamilton that has a dozen new starters throughout their roster. Yeah, maybe it might take a week or 2 to get going and gel together on in-game action. But I know like Hamilton, Calgary, and Ottawa are some teams I'm going to look at, teams that dropped games last week to see if they can bounce back and get back up that power ranking list.
Yep, week 2, but already plenty of great storylines to chew on. LL Cool J, 3 o'clock. Your game ticket is your concert ticket. Be there. The Trues will be outside earlier. The backyard party Saturday. Famous Players Band on the Friday. And like we say, the viewing party, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. Thanks again to Kate Beirness for joining us. Thanks to you, the listener. Subscribe, rate, leave a review. Tell your friends. We'll be back. BC Lions on Tap radio show with Moj on AM 730 Tuesday night at the Shark Club downtown. Guest to be determined. We got content for days, folks. Love it. And we appreciate you listening and subscribing. Go Lions. Nick, eat your vegetables this week. Time. Eat your vegetables this week. It's going to be a busy one.
I always do.
Okay. First and Now. Back next week.